Hello and welcome to the MSU Wealth Management Association podcast. This summer we are excited to bring back some of our favorite episodes every Monday. We hope you are having an amazing summer and expect new interviews for our next season, Season 9, in September as the school year begins. Thank you for listening and enjoy.
Hello everyone, this is Vincent Pacillo, host of the MSU WMA podcast. We have another amazing episode planned for you today. We recently hosted Helen Dashney. Helen has been a long-time employee at Michigan State University, holding many different positions, including being a part-time instructor and being the former director and founder of the Financial Markets Institute, which is an institute helping to assist students in the financial services careers, especially investment banking and investment management, and achieving a 100% placement of students into full-time jobs and internships. Along with that, we talked about Helen's career in the financial services industry, and we also talked about the importance of networking and why investing in student success is so important and so much more. Stay tuned. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the MSU WMA podcast. I am here with Helen Dashney. Helen, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's my pleasure to be here, Vincent. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, for sure. So let's kind of start with like a little bit of your background. So how did you end up at Michigan State? A little bit about like your journey within the financial world and stuff like that.
Well, I've had kind of a long journey, actually. I don't know how much I joined Michigan State 25 years ago. This is actually my 26th year. So I came on board at the Broad College in the fall of 1996. Prior to that, however, I had a 20-year corporate career. I spent 10 years in corporate banking in two different banks, about equal amount of time in marketing and marketing research for a major pharmaceutical company. A move to Lansing brought me to Michigan State to work, which has been great, but it was actually my second time here. I have a graduate degree in consumer economics from Michigan State that I earned when I first moved to Michigan from New York State.
Very, very cool. So what were your major kind of duties when you were working at the corporate finance companies?
Well, in the banking world, I largely in my first bank had responsibility in the retail sector. When I left, I was managing the main office of the bank plus 3 or 4 of its branch offices. So I had a rather large staff, and we were responsible for all of the transaction services, whether it be deposit, savings, new accounts, that sort of thing, yes. Installment loans, small commercial loans, not the major ones, and not mortgage loans, but quite a wide variety of responsibilities. I also spent a year in commercial credit during my tenure there. So that was an opportunity to analyze financial statements and help the loan officers determine, Vincent, if a company was qualified for a new term loan or for an extension of its line of credit.
Very, very cool. So what would you say that finance is always something that you wanted to do, or was it just kind of something you ended up somewhere, or
I have to be perfectly honest with you. I came to finance in a rather odd way. I was an economics major in undergraduate school. I confess to having never had an accounting class and never having a finance class. So any finance I know or experience I've had in the industry is a learned opportunity, I guess I call it.
Yeah, very, very cool. So one of the things that's really cool that you kind of helped at Michigan State was the Financial Markets Institute. So can you kind of take us through what that means to people who doesn't know what that is?
I certainly can. And I'd like to give you a little bit of history because it was the Financial Markets Institute, or FMI, as it's known around the Broad College, really had its spark from students. There were a number of students in the 2005 era that were very interested in Wall Street type careers, whether it be investment banking or whatever. And they had done a lot of work on their own to try to determine how they might break into the area, because Michigan State, of course, as you know, back then was not a target school for that kind of opportunity. Just previous to these three students, there were another group of students that actually went down to our neighboring school in Ann Arbor and waited on the doorstep of the Career Center and buttonholed the recruiters from the banks as they came out and got them to interview them.
Wow.
And actually had a little bit of traction getting jobs. So those two things kind of coalesced, and when I heard the students presenting to the deans and myself, I felt like these students deserve a chance. They had really done a lot. With the backing of the department chair in finance at the time, I was able to get the Financial Markets Institute, started in 2006. And so it's now 15 years old. I call it my baby. I birthed it and brought it along for 13 years. And it's been a work in progress, but it's very much built, and any success that's derived, I have to attribute to the students who participated, because they've been amazing. Really, a company doesn't hire more of a Spartan if the Spartans that are there don't do a really great job. So the students deserve a lot of credit. The alumni have been absolutely amazing in terms of building it. And, I really have to give a shout out to Dean Gupta and department chairs and all who have supported our efforts to make it work. So I really call it a community effort.
Yeah, no, that is so cool. So you mentioned how it's a program for people who want to go to like investment banking, private equity, and stuff like that. So if someone at Michigan State's interested in FMI, I feel like it's freshman or sophomore or anything like that, what does that look like? What does the process to getting into FMI look like?
The process is very early, so I actually would encourage freshmen to be exploring the opportunity. And hopefully with more and more students becoming direct admit to Broad College, that's going to make it easier for students to hear about the FMI, because recruiting actually starts in the sophomore year. So the current FMI director, my colleague Dave Hawthorne, has continued the process of marketing the FMI to interested students by holding information sessions. They can then apply in the fall of their sophomore year. They need to be very well read, so we encourage them to take advantage of the ASMSU readership program, where they can get access to the Wall Street Journal, Financial Times, New York Times. Of course, our friends down at U of M who started the Morning Brew continue to do a really great job, I believe, with that publication, making some things available. So doing a really good job reading and getting prepared, talking to students who are already FMI scholars is another great way to learn, so that when they apply in the fall and go through a rather selective interview process that includes a finance and accounting exam, interviews with the directors, and interviews with current scholars. The students have a part to play in this too. They're prepared for the rigor of that application process.
Yeah, no, that's super cool. And like as I've kind of heard you describe this process, you've mentioned the student a lot, which I think is really, really cool. So why did you decide to start helping students at MSU? Like what was kind of the motivation behind that?
It sounds a little trite, Vincent, so I hesitate to say it, but that's really why I'm here. I'm working part-time now. I'm well past the retirement age, but love what I do. It's an opportunity to help students. I feel that we have an opportunity and frankly an obligation as faculty and staff here at the university to help students understand what their interests are, and given those interests, what their opportunities from a professional standpoint might be. And so it is an education process. It is a professional development process to help them gain the resume and the interviewing and the networking skills that are so important to the business. And I take great pleasure in watching the progress young people make from the time I meet them until they graduate. And so I am about student development, I guess. That's what I really love.
Yeah.
And I have the great honor, actually, of staying in touch with many, many of these scholars who graduated in our first classes. Just last week, I had a hour-long conversation with a young man who's been in New York since he graduated in 2011, and
Wow.
done a number of jobs. And so really love to stay in touch. Yesterday, I spoke to a young man who graduated in 2015.
Yeah.
So it's just really it's fascinating to hear what they're doing, what's interesting them, it helps me stay abreast of what's going on in the industry,
Definitely.
which is really important. It's really from them that I have learned, from the students and from the alumni that taught me this. I did not know what investment banking was, or private equity, or venture capital, or any of that was.
Yeah.
But through my own reading and through their remarkable willingness to explain things to me, I really enjoyed learning about the business as well. But
That
it's all about students.
that is super, super cool. So, like you mentioned, like the venture capitalist and the investment banking and private equity and stuff like that. Have you seen any FMI individuals go into wealth management or like be interested in wealth management or anything like that?
Yes, there have certainly been some, and some may go into it. Not in their first job, but a little bit later. They may not join, the Morgan Stanleys or JP Morgans or whatever that so much in, though we do have some students that are in that.
Yeah.
There's a young man in Phoenix that has been with JP Morgan for 10 years now. So that's a terrific, he's done very, very well with the firm. But many of them actually, after they gain some broader knowledge, may join even family offices.
Yeah.
And that is, they may be single family offices, or they may be multifamily audience. I keep saying audiences,
Yeah.
companies, I'm sorry, firms, offices. And that's really interesting to them, because they're for those who don't know a family office, it's families with considerable wealth who are looking for their portfolio of investments to be much more varied and probably a little higher risk profile
Right.
than the standard wealth management practice. So that is where their venture capital and private equity experience can be very helpful to them, as well as their banking experience. So family offices have become quite popular, I would say, in terms of potential third or second, third, fourth jobs out of school.
No, definitely. I mean, there's definitely been a boom within the family office industry because, like, as people's wealth has become bigger, there've been more family offices and stuff like that. So, another thing about FMI, what is a thing that is there anything academically that sets it apart from like a non-FMI related program or anything like that?
I would say so, yes. One is that a couple of things. The first I would say is that we stress the students have perhaps stronger accounting skills than the typical finance major is required to have. Here at Michigan State, a finance major can have a good background with 9 credit hours of accounting, but that if that person can gain 12 or 15 as an FMI student, he or she's going to be much better positioned to handle some of the work that comes their way. Many of the students tell me what they keep on their desk is their accounting 300 book. They have to refer to it with some frequency.
Yeah.
We also have the FMI students do some additional coursework in oral and written presentations. With the written presentations, not so much, a paper that you would, 5-page paper that you would write for another type of liberal arts class, perhaps, but really an executive summary. How do you take the really key information and get it succinct and present that in a compelling fashion? And also presentation skills. That becomes critically important, I feel, for not just the FMI students, but you private wealth students as well.
Yeah.
Because it's all about how you convey the message to, whether it be your clients, whether they be private wealth clients or corporate clients of the investment bank, whatever. It's how you convey it and the confidence in which you do so that's going to make a difference towards your success. And while Marketing 250 is a good class, and I'm glad all students have to take it. Dr. Weisner does a great job with it, but I think there's a much greater potential that the students need to develop, and that's why we offer more coursework for the FMI students in that.
Very cool. No, I totally agree with you on Marketing 250. For those who don't know what it is, it's pretty much a business communications class. I mean, I'm so happy it's standard across because it really teaches you the basics, but it's so good, like how to write an email or how to reach out to someone on LinkedIn, et cetera, et cetera. It's great.
Right.
So kind of going off of that academic note. So I've understood that you're also an instructor at Michigan State and still are. But what's like your favorite course you like to teach and why?
Well, I've done a number of different things, and I enjoy them for different ways. So I'm going to broaden that response a little bit beyond what you asked,
Definitely.
if that's okay.
Of
For
course.
the last 15 years, I've organized a lecture series every semester first it was for the Department of Finance, and now it's for Dean Gupta, his C-suite lecture series, he calls it. And so I bring in at least 5, if not more, alums every semester to talk to students about their businesses, what they're doing, what problems they have, how they go about solving them, that kind of thing. And I try to bring in a great variety. This fall we in the lecture class, we enjoyed a conversation with a senior consultant at McKinsey. I had one of my former MBA students who started his own fintech business in China speak.
Wow.
We had a futurist of Ford Motor Company come and talk, a former student of mine who's a senior director of human resources at McKesson, which has been hugely important to the distribution of vaccines in our country, come and speak. So it's just really fun for me to meet these alums and introduce them to the students. So it's been fun for 15 years.
Yeah.
My more recent endeavor is a women's leadership class. And this is my 3rd year doing it, and just really enjoy working with the young men and women, because men take it too. And we study some interesting people and what's made them successful as leaders, and when they have slipped up and not done so well, what causes that. So that's been really fun as well.
That is super cool. So the other thing I kind of noticed when you're talking about like with the lecture series and with FMI is there's an emphasis on networking. I feel like you seem to have a lot of contact with the alumni and all of that kind of stuff. So can you give people like kind of your best networking tips when it comes to stuff like that when they're introducing someone to for the first time?
These are going to be maybe different than other people would give, but my main slogan is I like to refer it to connecting as opposed to networking, because it sounds like it's more fun, and I view it as fun. I like curiosity is hugely important. I'm pretty curious. I like to ask questions. I like to learn, and I think that mindset goes well with networking. The main thing I tell students is view it as building a relationship and not having it as a transaction. I think where most people can struggle is they think, okay, I'll place a call to somebody and I'll learn a little bit, and maybe it'll help me get an introduction for an internship, or I'll just learn about that business. And then they never have another conversation. That's a transaction. Or they may have more than one, but they're strictly using it as trying to develop a relationship so that person will introduce them for a job opportunity. You can see through that. And they feel used a little bit. Try just to get to know the person. Ask for their advice. People love to talk about themselves. Just open it up and let the other person do the talking, and you'll learn from that. And then ask if you can follow up. Ask if you once you've gotten established with that person, if they would be willing to introduce you to somebody else that they think you would benefit from getting to know. And then always, always, always thank the person and tell them what a great conversation you had with their referral. It's just really important. So, I guess I have a little bit of a reputation around here of knowing a lot of people, but it's been hugely important. I can go back to the FMI with this one, Vincent,
Yeah.
if I can for just a moment. An example of something that paid huge dividends that I had no idea would at the time. This is way early in my career. There were no flat screen TVs, so student organizations announced their meetings with 8.5 by 11 pieces of
Yep.
paper noting their meetings taped all over the walls of the school. And I noticed that there was a finance association meeting, pardon me, was hosting an event with two gentlemen from Chicago who worked in private equity. And I thought to myself, I have no idea what that even means. So I went to the meeting. I was working in the MBA program at the time, but I went to the meetings that the Finance Association was holding, sat in the back of the room and listened to the gentleman's presentation, listened to the student questions, let them do all their Q&A with the Pearson, and was so the last one there with the speakers. So I went down and introduced myself and told them why I was there. And it was very interesting. I appreciated learning, got their names. 5 years later, when I started the FMI, those two men became my board, joined me on the board.
Wow.
And so it was just, just that curiosity that opened in a connection. I'd stayed in touch. They remembered me because it was pretty unusual for somebody like me to come to a meeting and stay and learn. And so that's, it pays to have those kinds of ad hoc things where you're not looking for anything but knowledge because they can come back and pay off in big ways.
Yeah, that is really, really cool. So kind of to wrap things up here, what's just general advice you would give to students in school or about to start their careers after graduation?
Um, there's so many things. Your careers will develop as you get there. I worry less, you know, I often tell students, don't forget to have fun in college. Get to know your peers. They're going to come back. They may be your business mates at some point in the future.
Yeah.
Be able to say, I'm still very good friends with my college roommate. We had our 50th reunion this year,
Yeah.
and we're still very good friends. I want students to be able to say the same thing. It's really important. I would say this is where it's a little bit off the professional, but adds to it. Consider your own well-being. Take care of yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, and I'll say financially too, because if you, I did teach a personal finance course, so I suppose this is where this point came from.
Yeah.
But if you live within your means and not try to overextend, you will give yourself job options. You will not be married to a job you don't like because of the good salary that it pays. You can give yourself some opportunities. So I have no doubt that your broad education will position you well to continue learning and excel in the career you've chosen for yourself, or to move on to one that you find you like better. But take care of yourself and have fun and develop great friendships. That may sound a little odd for a faculty person to say, but I think it's hugely important.
I totally agree. Helen, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, this has been fun, Vincent. Thanks for asking me.
For sure.
If you like what you just heard, please like, comment, and share. This is Lance Mullen, producer of the MSU WMA podcast. MSU WMA, or Michigan State University Wealth Management Association, is a student organization part of the Eli Broad College of Business, located in East Lansing, Michigan. Our mission is to inspire and educate the next generation of financial planners. Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you enjoyed, please check out our channel on all platforms such as Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and check out our social media at MSUWMA and MSUWMA.com.